Hello, this is Tony Werfel, and this is my English 550 Module 2 presentation, Ways of Forming Words. And so there are many different ways of forming words we've learned in class. Anything from functional shifting, which is essentially changing a word from one part of speech to another, giving it new meaning, to the way of shortening, which is essentially taking a word or a phrase and shortening it down, creating new meaning. Another one that we've learned was blending. Blending two different words to create a new word. Something like fork and spoon can become spork. Super fun. So what I'm going to choose to look at today is the process of combining. And in the process of combining, there are many different methods. The one I'm choosing to look at today is compounding. And so with compound words, what we're essentially doing is we're taking two different words and we're placing them together, but they're going to be able to stand on their own, but when you put them together, they create a new meaning. And so to make that even more obviously understood, we can look at Kenneth G. Wilson. He says, typically a compound begins as a kind of cliche. Two words that are frequently found together as an air cargo, like colored. So if the association persists, the two words often turn into a compound. So he points out light switch, moonshine. These are different words. Together, they create a new kind of meaning. Adrienne Ajizam says in Linguistics, an introduction to language and communication, she even goes further. She says, compounds are not limited to two words, as shown by examples such as bathroom, towel, rack, community center, finance committee. Indeed, the process of compounding seems unlimited in English. I thought that was really kind of interesting. Words and the process continues to grow and change, evolve, morph. Super exciting. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to look back, because many of these words have been used and created in the past, and we can still see them today. So what I'd love to do is look at some of the creators of some of these compound words that we use often today, and then some words that we don't really use anymore. And so one of the first people obviously we'll move to, which is non-contemporary, would be Shakespeare. Shakespeare has created so many different words. And so in King Lear, Act 2, Scene 4, we have King Lear saying, "Nor tell tales of thee to high judging Jove," again, some alliteration. But high judging was one of the first compounds you can see with Shakespeare using them. Another place in King Lear you'll find, which is a word I don't think we use all too often, is the compound word fen-sucked. He's referring to fog and how it's drawn by the powerful sun. We can see that there. Also in Act 3, Scene 1, we see the gentleman using a word that I think is very common in our culture today. It's been continued on. Fen-sucked may have died out, but heart-struck in Act 3, Scene 1 is one that we definitely use today. And again, the gentleman was the first to use that there in Shakespeare's play. Another one where you'll see a word that he's used often, one that he created, was the word eyesore. Act 3, Scene 2 by Baptista, where they essentially used that word for the first time, and now we continue using that every time we see someone wearing denim on denim. It's an eyesore, right? So eyesore. So Shakespeare, he loved the compound word. Over and over again, you can find in classical lit through Shakespeare these compound words. Another place you might look is Great Expectations with Charles Dickens. Dickens liked the compound word as well. And so in Great Expectations, Pip, he's talking of his caregiver, and he says, "She asked me and Joe whether we supposed she was a doormat under our feet, and how we dared to use her so." Doormat, a very common word today, first used by Dickens. Dickens loved them as well. And so you'll see with Dickens, he coined the phrase dustbin, right? The compound word dustbin in Dombey and Son. He also created the compound word Butterfingers in the Pickwick Papers. So every time someone drops a ball today in the NFL, we might call them Butterfingers, referring to more than just a candy bar, right? It's where an individual will miss, they'll drop the thing. Butterfingers, Pickwick Papers. Another place in Pickwick Papers, a word that we don't use very often, but apparently it was used pretty often during the late 1800s and even early 1900s. We see the phrase or the word whiz bang. Again, whiz bang, not a word we use very often anymore, but even in the 50s, there were people using the word whiz bang. Ever wonder where the sandwich board came from? Well, that came from Charles Dickens. The sandwich board compound word comes from the Pickwick Papers, where he's referring to someone. He says, he's pointing out that person who's wearing the sign. He says, a piece of human flesh between two slices of pasteboard, sandwich board. Another word that we don't use very often anymore, but was very popular for a while, is the compound word sawbones. And this was from Pickwick Papers. Sawbones was an interesting word because it was actually referring to doctors who sawed bones. We don't call our doctors sawbones anymore for obvious reasons. And so there are many, many places, non-contemporary, where we can look where we see the words, the compound words used. Now there are many other places, contemporary, that we can look at where we can see compound words being used. And so one of my favorite places to start would be Christmas Vacation. In the movie Christmas Vacation, starring Chevy Chase, one of my favorite movies during the holidays, Chevy Chase gives this incredible speech, and he uses many compound words. He'll say fat ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed. And so listen to this speech now and see if you can find those compound words.
I'm sorry, Clark.
This isn't the biggest bag over the head punch in the face I ever got. God damn it! Son. Any of you are looking for any last-minute gift ideas for me? I have one. I like Frank Shirley, my boss, right here tonight. I want him brought from his happy holiday slumber over there in Melody Lane with all the other rich people, and I want him brought right here with a big ribbon on his head. And I want to look him straight in the eye, and I want to tell him what a cheap, lying, no-good, rotten, four-flushing, low-life, snake-licking, dirt-eating, inbred, overstuffed, ignorant, blood-sucking, dog-kissing, brainless, dickless, hopeless, heartless, fat-ass, bug-eyed, stiff-legged, spotty-lipped, worm-headed sack of monkey shit he is.
As you can see, Chevy Chase made great use of the compound words there in the speech. And so moving on, factoids is a word that many of us use today. And factoids, whether you know it or not, came from Norman Mailer's biography of Marilyn Monroe, in which he actually uses the word factoid for the first time. And so you can even find where people often cite him as the kind of father of the factoid. And so Norman Mailer was the first to use factoid. And really all over our language today, we find compounds used. We have them anywhere from jellyfish to superhuman with the Avengers movies to words like backpack, raincoat. They're all over in our language. They're constantly being used. And so another place that we can find this in more contemporary literature is the word honey trap. I found this one interesting. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was, of course, made into a movie not that long ago. We can find John Le Carre's, he writes, "You see, long ago when I was a little boy, I made a mistake and walked into a honey trap." We can find that word used there, a trap, that is very seductive. It's tasty, but it's going to be a trap in the end. So again, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy uses the word honey trap, which is accredited to him. Another place you'll find a word that is often used today is scaredy cat. And that actually was considered the first time scaredy cat was used was by Dorothy Parker in her short story, The Waltz. It reads, "Oh yes, let's dance together. It's so nice to meet a man who isn't scaredy cat about catching my berry." I'm not sure what that meant, but I do understand what scaredy cat meant. When you look at the word slam dunk today, that was actually coined in 1972 by Chick Hearn, who was a Los Angeles sports broadcaster. For the first time, he saw a man jump up and throw the ball through the hoop, touching the rim, and he coined the word for the first time, slam dunk. Pretty interesting. Cyberspace is another word in our culture today used over and over again, and that was coined by William Gibson. He was a sci-fi writer. In his book Neuromancer, he uses that word cyberspace. And so, again, thank you, William Gibson. You helped us create this beautiful movie with Neo and the Matrix. So thank you for that. All over in our culture today, whether it's afterbirth, scarecrow, drawbridge, drugstore, daydream, earbug, waistline, grapefruit, armchair, these words are everywhere. The compound word is being used today. And so whether you're Shakespeare, Dickens, Chevy Chase, or the awkward guy carrying the sandwich sign, compound words can be found everywhere in our culture today. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and our Works Cited page is there, of course, for you to see. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.